When Jake announced that he was marrying Emily, a woman nearly 10 years older than him, people couldn't hide their surprise. His friends laughed, his colleagues whispered behind his back, and even some family members tried to talk him out of it. "Why would a young guy like you marry an older woman?" they asked, shaking their heads. But Jake didn't care. He loved Emily, and that was all that mattered. On their wedding day, he stood at the altar with a confident smile, ready to start a new chapter. No one could have predicted what would happen just 2 years later, something that would leave everyone speechless. At first, life for Jake and Emily wasn't easy. The judgment from others didn't stop after their wedding. When they went out together, people often assumed Emily was his older sister or even his boss. Some of Jake's friends drifted away, and even his parents took time to fully accept their marriage. But none of it mattered to Jake. Emily was everything he had ever wanted: kind, intelligent, and deeply supportive. She had built a successful career in New York as a writer, and her wisdom and life experience helped Jake in ways he had never imagined. He was working as a struggling entrepreneur, trying to get his tech startup off the ground. When he felt like giving up, Emily was the one who encouraged him to keep pushing forward. 2 years later, everything changed. Jake's startup, which many had dismissed as just another failing project, suddenly took off. He had developed an innovative app that gained massive attention, and within months, investors were pouring in. Overnight, Jake went from being the guy people pitted to a rising star in the tech industry. At an awards ceremony in Silicon Valley, Jake stood on stage, accepting the Innovator of the Year award. Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed him, and people who once doubted him now lined up to shake his hand. But as he spoke into the microphone, he didn't thank the investors, the market trends, or his own hard work first. He turned to Emily, sitting in the front row with tears in her eyes. "This award belongs to my wife," he said. "When the world doubted me, she believed in me. When I wanted to quit, she pushed me forward. People laughed at me for marrying an older woman, but what they didn't realize was that I wasn't just marrying someone older. I was marrying someone wiser, stronger, and more incredible than anyone I've ever met." The room erupted in applause. Those who once mocked him now looked at Emily with admiration. And at that moment, Jake knew that love, real love, wasn't about age, appearance, or what society thought. It was about finding someone who sees the best in you and never lets you give up on your dreams. As they left the ceremony hand in hand, Emily whispered, "I told you, didn't I?" Jake smiled. "You always do." As Jake and Emily walked out of the ceremony, hand in hand, the world around them felt different. The same people who once doubted them now wanted to interview them, collaborate with them, and even befriend them. But none of that mattered as much as the quiet, unshakable love they had built over the years. Jake's company continued to grow, and with success came new challenges. He found himself busier than ever. Meetings, travel, late nights spent working on the next big idea. The pressure was intense, and at times, he felt himself slipping into the trap so many successful entrepreneurs did, prioritizing work over everything else. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, Jake came home exhausted. He found Emily sitting on their balcony, a cup of tea in her hands, watching the city lights. She smiled at him, but he could see the worry in her eyes. "You're burning out," she said softly. "I'm fine," he replied, rubbing his temples. She reached for his hand. "I know you, Jake, and I know that look. You're chasing success so hard, you're forgetting why you started in the first place." Her words hit him harder than he expected. She was right. He had spent years dreaming of a life where he could provide for them, where he could make a difference. But what was the point if he lost himself in the process? That night, they talked for hours. Emily reminded him of the importance of balance, of taking time to breathe and live, not just work. Inspired by her wisdom, Jake made a bold decision. He started restructuring his company, delegating more responsibilities, and even setting aside weekends just for them. With more time together, Jake and Emily found themselves rediscovering the little things. Morning walks in Central Park, cooking dinner together, and spontaneous road trips. Their love only grew deeper, proving that true partnership wasn't just about being there in the tough times, but also about guiding each other toward a life well lived. But just as they were settling into this new rhythm, life threw them an unexpected challenge, one that would test their love and resilience in ways they never imagined. One crisp autumn morning, Emily sat across from Jake at their favorite cafe, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee. She had been quieter than usual, and Jake could sense something was on her mind. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She hesitated for a moment before placing her hand over his. "Jake, I went to the doctor last week. They found something." His heart dropped. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "They found a small tumor. It's early, but they want to run more tests." The world around Jake blurred. Just minutes ago, they had been laughing about their weekend plans. Now nothing else mattered. "We'll get through this," he said, squeezing her hand. "Together." Emily gave him a small smile, one filled with quiet strength. "I know." The days that followed were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, second opinions, and difficult conversations. The biopsy confirmed it was cancer, but the doctors reassured them that they had caught it early. There was a strong chance of recovery, but it would require surgery and months of treatment. Jake refused to leave her side. He put his work on hold, stepping back from the company he had worked so hard to build. Nothing mattered more than being there for Emily. The world saw him as a successful entrepreneur, but in those months he was just a husband, one who was terrified but determined to fight for the love of his life. Emily, as always, faced the battle with grace and resilience. Even on her worst days, she tried to keep his spirits high. "Jake," she said one evening, her voice weak but teasing, "if I can handle you being a workaholic, I can handle this." He laughed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You're stronger than I'll ever be." The treatments were grueling, but Emily fought through every setback with the same determination that had once pushed Jake to pursue his dreams. And just like she had supported him in his hardest moments, he now became her rock, holding her hand through every chemo session, making her laugh on the darkest days, and reminding her that she was never alone. Months passed, and after a final round of tests, the doctors delivered the news they had been praying for. Emily was cancer-free. Tears streamed down Jake's face as he held her close. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she corrected, smiling through her own tears. "We did it." The battle had changed them, deepened their love, and reminded them once again of what truly mattered. As they celebrated that night, surrounded by close friends and family, Jake realized something. He had spent so much of his life chasing success, but in the end, his greatest achievement wasn't his company or his awards. It was this. It was loving Emily, standing by her side, and proving to the world that their love, against all odds, against every doubt, was real, unshakable, and everlasting. But just when they thought their story had reached its peaceful chapter, life had one more unexpected twist in store. After Emily's recovery, life felt sweeter than ever. Every sunrise, every shared cup of coffee, and every quiet moment together was a reminder of how fragile and precious time truly was. Jake had stepped back from the relentless grind of entrepreneurship, opting instead to take on a mentorship role in his company, allowing himself the freedom to focus on what mattered most: his marriage, his passions, and living in the moment. Emily, always the storyteller, found new purpose in sharing her journey. She started writing a memoir, not just about her illness, but about love, resilience, and the lessons life had taught her. "People need to hear this," she told Jake one evening. "They need to know that love isn't about fairy tales. It's about choosing each other every single day, no matter what." Her words resonated far beyond what either of them expected. A few months later, a major publisher picked up her book. Overnight, Emily became an inspiration, invited to speak at events, interviewed by major networks, and celebrated for her wisdom and courage. And then, one day, something neither of them ever saw coming happened. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Emily sat across from Jake at the kitchen table, staring at a small white stick in her hand. Jake glanced up from his laptop, noticing the stunned look on her face. "What's wrong?" She looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Jake, I'm pregnant." For a moment, silence filled the room. They had never planned on having children. Emily, being older, had assumed it was unlikely, and they had made peace with that long ago. But now, here they were. Jake felt his heart race. "Are you sure?" She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I took 2 tests. A wave of emotion crashed over him. Joy, fear, disbelief, and above all, gratitude. He got up, walked over to her, and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Emily, this is incredible." She let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "I don't even know if it's possible. I mean, at my age." "We'll figure it out," Jake interrupted, his voice steady. "Like we always do, together." And so, their journey took another unexpected turn. Doctors monitored Emily closely, knowing the risks of a later-in-life pregnancy. But month after month, the baby grew stronger, defying every odd. 9 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, the same season that had once brought them life's greatest challenge, Emily gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Jake held their daughter for the first time, overwhelmed by the sheer miracle of it all. He looked at Emily, exhausted but radiant, and whispered, "She's perfect." Emily smiled weakly. "I think she has your stubbornness." Jake laughed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "And your strength." As they sat there, holding the life they had created together, Jake realized something profound. His life had been shaped by so many unexpected twists, so many moments he never saw coming. And yet, through all of it, one thing remained constant: love. Real, unshakable, against all odds love. And that, he knew, was the greatest story of all.